Good evening. Our top story tonight, the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Minnesota Vikings in what looked like a closer game on the scoreboard than it really was. The Eagles dominate the Vikings. Kirk Cousins plays great, but even greater is DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift balls the hell out. Did DeAndre Swift just become RB1 for the Philadelphia Eagles? Is Kenny Gainwell going to be relegated when he returns from injury? We've got that and much, much more on Player Profiler today. Appears my video is missing. That is unfortunate. It looks like I am having some internet issues. Hopefully at some point that will be dialed in, but I've already reset my router. Not much else I can do at this point. It would delay the show even further. So let's just roll with it. DeAndre Swift for the Philadelphia Eagles plays 75% of the team snaps. 9 snaps out of 77 went to Rashad Penny. 10 snaps went to Boston Scott. The other 58 go to DeAndre Swift. 77.7% of the running back carries for DeAndre Swift. That number is more than any Philadelphia Eagle had in the game last year, period. Miles Sanders just once topped 70% of the running back carries. DeAndre Swift does it in week 2. And DeAndre Swift had a 13.6% target share, which is more than any Eagle had in a single game last year. Miles Sanders only once passed the 10% threshold. DeAndre Swift is him. DeAndre Swift has always been an extremely talented running back. He has always been efficient when on the field. Last year, DeAndre Swift ranked first in yards per touch because he is so electric with the football in his hands, both as a runner and as a receiver. DeAndre Swift, 28 carries. The Eagles just leaned heavily on DeAndre Swift. 31 total catches all 3 of his targets, 181 yards and a touchdown from DeAndre Swift. I'm sorry, Ruckus. I've got fiber. I've got fiber internet. I'm plugged in as well. I don't know what's going on right now. I apologize. I've reset my router. Maybe something's going on in town. I wish I could tell you the answer, but I can tell you that DeAndre Swift might have taken this role from Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell, very reliable, very trustworthy back, but the electricity of DeAndre Swift is just too much to deny. We'll see what happens when Gainwell is healthy. He's going to have 10 days off. He's going to return, and he could become the starter once again. But DeAndre Swift's ability is just too good to deny. I expect DeAndre Swift to end up more as an RB2 than an RB1. I think they will still spell DeAndre Swift with Kenneth Gainwell. I think they'll both have games, more of a 50-50 split going forward, but the performance from DeAndre Swift last night was incredible. Thanks for the Swift over Khalil Herbert advice victory lap. Let's go, Thomas. Happy to hear that. So happy to hear that. As for the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown was seen frustrated on the sideline. People are taking it that he was mad at Jalen Hurst, but that might not be the case. We don't actually know what the conversation was. We don't know what was said. And it's interesting to note that A.J. Brown actually was second on the team in targets behind Dallas Goedert. A.J. Brown had more targets than DeVonta Smith. DeVonta Smith, 5 targets, catches 4 for 131 yards and a touchdown. The big difference between A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith is the average depth of target. On the 6 targets for A.J. Brown, he averages 9.2 yards per target. So basically targeting A.J. Brown consistently for a first down or in the first down area. DeVonta Smith drew a 24.6 average depth of target. So when the ball hit DeVonta Smith's hands, on average, it was over 24 yards downfield. And that is the difference. That is the difference between A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith. And this is a new offense. They lost their offensive coordinator to the Indianapolis Colts. He is now working magic with Anthony Richardson. But I expect this to go back to normal. A.J. Brown is going to figure it out. A.J. Brown is just too talented to deny. He'll end up being the number one target getter on this offense. But DeVonta Smith, so far, he's been the wide receiver one. That will revert back to A.J. Brown. But so far, great game from the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll get to the Minnesota Vikings right after this.
Hey, so many ask me, what's wrong with sportsbooks? Why so many of them fail? The answer is simple. They don't innovate. They're just casino sportsbooks on a phone. That's all they've been. There are a few that are doing a good job. We partner with them. Most of them, not so much. Until Bet Openly came along. Bet Openly said, hey, we're going to innovate. We're going to do something groundbreaking. We're going to have peer-to-peer betting in all states, and you pay 1%. When you win, you pay just 1% on your winnings. You heard that right. It's 1%. With code Underworld, you qualify for just that 1% transaction fee on Bet Openly. It gives you ultimate flexibility to set your own lines and browse lines that others have set. Think about it. That's what betting should be. And now that is the reality. BetOpenly.com. The code is Underworld. Check it out.
Check it out. We love our friends Bet Openly here at the Roto Underworld. Theo had to learn this hard way too. No Wi-Fi. I'm not on Wi-Fi. I know I said Wi-Fi. At this point in my vocabulary, Wi-Fi just means internet. But no, I am hooked directly in. It is very frustrating how bad my video appears to be right now. According to you, it looks fine on my end. So I apologize to all of you out there. 0.5 PPR, Higbee, Chig, or Komet. I am going with Tyler Higbee, unlike the Harry Snowman who goes with Cole Komet. The difference here, I would go Komet over Chig, but the difference here is Puka Nacua. Puka Nacua has not practiced this week. He's officially questionable with an oblique injury, but no Puka Nacua in practice, no Puka Nacua potentially in the game. I'm going with Tyler Higbee because of the law of the conservation of targets. If Puka Nacua had practiced all week, I might go Komet. I probably still go Tyler Higbee, but the lack of practice for Puka Nacua, it's worrying me. To not practice all week, it's very unlikely that Puka Nacua plays this game, and if he does, he's going to be severely limited. At least you always had a professional mic and lighting from day one, Jack. Appreciate you, Bruce Flash. Just sold Kelly and Pittman for Olave in super. Love that. Love that. Michael Pittman is an alpha. Michael Pittman very much impressed me. But Chris Olave is even more of an alpha. Chris Olave dominates the targets for a pass-happier offense with the New Orleans Saints. Love it. Joshua Kelly going to be great this week. And 30% fab, I get that. That's what you had to pay for Joshua Kelly. He's going to be great this week. But going forward, he's a handcuff. After this week, Austin Ekeler is going to come back. And then he's going to be back to handcuff status. Dotson, Elijah Moore, or Justice Hill. Give me Jahan Dotson, the alpha for the Washington Commanders. Can be a touchdown machine as well. Higbee versus San Fran. Yes, law of the conservation of targets. No Puka Nacua. Stafford's going to have to throw to somebody, and Stafford looked damn good in week one. I know the Seahawks defense looked pretty terrible, but give me Tyler Higbee. Full PPR league, 3 wide receiver starters, Amon-Ra, Keenan Allen, need my third, +1 in the flex, JSN, Elijah Moore, Rashid Shaheed, Tyler Boyd, or do I flex Zach Moss or Dalvin Cook? So we're starting Elijah Moore for sure. Amari Cooper has been banged up. We think it's the injury that kept him out of part of the summer, part of the preseason. We don't know for sure, but Amari Cooper, a little bit banged up. The Steelers defense isn't stopping anyone, at least what we saw against the San Francisco 49ers. It got even worse losing Cameron Hayward. So definitely Elijah Moore. And then number 2, I probably go Rashid Shaheed. I like the explosive upside of Rashid Shaheed. JSN not going to draw the targets that we want to see. Tyler Boyd not going to draw the targets we want to see. Zach Moss going to be a lot of empty calorie touches because Anthony Richardson's going to be running it at the goal line. And Dalvin Cook wasn't particularly efficient, didn't particularly impress me. So give me Elijah Moore and Rashid Shaheed. Half PPR redraft, Garrett Wilson, David Montgomery for Kupp. I have Puka. If you're getting Kupp, then I'm all right with it. Garrett Wilson takes a massive step down. David Montgomery is going to cede work to Cooper Kupp. But Even then, Kupp's still not going to play for another 3 games. I think I would hold it out with Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson, if he draws a crazy target share with Zach Wilson, which he should, you'll be able to get more for him. Kupp being out a couple of weeks doesn't really help your team as well. Puka Nacua being out. So I think I like the Garrett Wilson side with David Montgomery just a little bit better right now. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings, though, in the game last night, Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins gets a lot of hate. Primetime Kirk, he stinks, can't win a game. Kirk Cousins, through no fault of his own, 0-2, on pace for 6,000 yards, 51 touchdowns, 8.5 interceptions. Kirk Cousins is on an MVP pace in terms of what he is putting on the field. Granted, Kirk always has stretches like this. Kirk Cousins lights the world on fire, and then at some point, he does something silly like kneeling instead of spiking to run out the half instead of scoring points. Things like that from Kirk Cousins will keep him from actually hitting 6,000 yards, probably keep him from hitting 5,000 yards. But this is not Kirk Cousins' fault that the Minnesota Vikings are 0-2. Interesting note from the Minnesota Vikings. 0 routes from their wide receivers who are not named Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and KJ Osborne. All of their other wide receivers have run exactly 0 routes. Justin Jefferson is the alpha. He has more receiving yards than any Bears player ever. In just 52 games for the Minnesota Vikings at 24 years old, Justin Jefferson has more career receiving yards than the Bears have had ever. Crazy. Absolutely crazy from Justin Jefferson. Hope he finds the end zone soon. Jordan Addison finds the end zone once again. TJ Hockenson finds the end zone twice. Great for them. But Alexander Mattison. So there's 2 conversations we need to have about Alexander Mattison. The first, doesn't look like a bell cow running back. Doesn't look like an RB1. Catches 3 of 5 targets for 11 yards. We love the 5 targets for Alexander Mattison. Love it. Only 8 carries because they're being blown out. So I get why they're not running the football. Still, 27 yards on 8 carries for Alexander Mattison, 3.2 yards per carry over the past 2 games, averaging 42 yards per game, both as a runner and as a receiver. Alexander Mattison, not a bell cow, not an RB1. Seems as though Ty Chandler should be playing more for this Minnesota Vikings offense. He is more explosive, offers more upside potentially. But the other conversation we have to have about Alexander Mattison is the deplorable things that are being sent to him on the internet from so-called fans. It is absolutely disgusting, some of the things that Alexander Mattison has been subjected to. He put it on his Instagram story. You can read it yourself. I am not repeating the language he was subjected to and the ill wishes, but it's just gross. It's just gross. Alexander Mattison deserves better. All of these NFL players deserve better. Every single one of them deserves our respect for going out there and competing at the level that they do, even if it is not particularly efficient, even if for fantasy football purposes in our fun little game here. It's annoying and frustrating. These are real people. They're allowed to have off days at work. And even if it doesn't work out, period. No one deserves that type of abuse. So please, none of that. I know none of you out there are saying those awful things, but just frustrating to see. Anyways, moving on. Chase Brown, healthy scratch, week 1. Hold or cut? I think you're holding him for now. You don't want to just cut a guy that you spent a 2nd, 3rd round pick in Dynasty. So we're not cutting him. No, you're holding him, especially in these deeper Dynasty leagues. I can't see there being someone on the Ross waiver wire that's just you got to have at the expense of Chase Brown based on where you drafted Chase Brown. Season long, full PPR. Is Alexander Mattison going to be okay as my RB2? I already have Barkley as my 1. I don't think so. I think Alexander Mattison is more of a RB3/4. It doesn't look like it's working out for Alexander Mattison. The role is great. The offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings is not. And the fact that the Vikings are in shootouts means they're not running the football. So I think you're going to want to look for an upgrade over Alexander Mattison. Let me know who else you have. Let me know who's available. Just don't think Madison's the 2. 0.5 PPR. Start 1. Garrett Wilson, Samaje Perine, Zach Moss, Romeo Doubs, or Jaden Reed. I'm starting Garrett Wilson. I am starting Garrett Wilson. Definitely over Zach Moss. Over Samaje Perine as well. And I just can't stomach. I'm starting Jaden Reed over Romeo Doubs, just to be clear, but I just can't stomach benching Garrett Wilson for Jaden Reed, a rookie, when Christian Watson looks like he's going to return. So just roll it out with Garrett Wilson. He's caught his first touchdown pass from Zach Wilson last week. Might work out for Garrett Wilson. But speaking of the injury report and what we are seeing from Christian Watson didn't practice on Wednesday, didn't practice on Thursday, but he gets a limited session in today, which is something we saw last year. Christian Watson only needed a limited practice on Friday to be cleared on Sunday. I am expecting Christian Watson to play after missing week 1 with a hamstring injury, which changes up the whole complexion of this offense. I'm still playing Jaden Reed in some leagues based on injuries and all of that jazz. Actually, no, I'm starting him instead of Christian Watson. So if Christian Watson plays, never mind. But still, I like Jaden Reed. I think he's a good football player. I'm excited to see him continue to do what he has done. Other good news on the injury report. There is a lot of good news. Travis Kelce is back. I don't know if you saw the video. He fakes aggravating the knee injury and then does the booty shake. Travis Kelce is good to go. He's playing on Sunday. Mark Andrews, he was limited in practice all week. Looks like he isn't. Jawan Johnson suffered a calf injury, missed some time earlier this week. He is practicing in full. He is good to go. And Kendre Miller might make his debut for the New Orleans Saints as well. He was practicing in a limited capacity earlier today with a hamstring injury. Might see Kendre Miller make his debut for the New Orleans Saints. Jerry Jeudy is expected to play. Devon Achane practicing in full. Raheem Mostert practicing in full after Scary did not practice earlier this week. Looks like Zach Moss is coming back. Looks like DJ Chark's coming back. John Mechie is expected to make his debut after missing week 1 with a hamstring injury and missing last year after his cancer diagnosis. So very excited to see what John Mechie does. Very, very excited for John Mechie. Looking at some of these other questions we've got. Thoughts on stashing Keaton Mitchell coming off IR, and I might have a chance in ailing the Baltimore backfield. He's fine as a stash, but remember, it's still going to be another couple of weeks before he comes off of injured reserve. He's got to miss at least 4 games. So he's fine as a stash, but there are other better stashes, I suppose. Other option I have is Alexander Mattison, Kenneth Gainwell, and Jalen Warren. Looks like Gainwell might have lost the job, as I was talking about earlier, so don't love that. But there's a chance that Gainwell is still your starter, still your RB2. Jalen Warren kind of needs something to happen with Najee. Should I handcuff Ty Chandler? And Zach Charbonnet was cut in a league also. I would handcuff with Ty Chandler. Zach Charbonnet, RB3 behind DJ Dallas. Kenneth Walker's a bell cow. I don't see you confidently starting Zach Charbonnet at any point, whereas Ty Chandler could pass Mattison to be that RB1. So I think that is the more likely scenario to help your fantasy team. So handcuff with Ty Chandler. Reed has played 1 game, probably good for 4 to 6 targets a game. Absolutely agree. Jaden Reed is going to be solid, sometimes spectacular. I'm excited to see what he can do. Mark Andrews, yes, he is expected to be back this week. At least it looks like it. Half-point PPR, pick 2, Elijah Moore, DJ Moore, Pickens, or Burks. Ooh, I'm starting DJ Moore because there's no way that they just go back and don't target him the way they did. Pickens, what do we think about Pickens? I am pulling up. Oh, that's tight ends. That's why it's not showing Pickens in the tight ends. Wide receiver, Pickens, Burke, or Elijah Moore. Where is George Pickens? Do we not have George Pickens? Of course, we gotta have. Oh, there he is. Wide receiver 28, right behind DJ Moore at 27, Elijah Moore at 30, and Burks. Burks is interesting. Because DeAndre Hopkins isn't playing. DeAndre Hopkins did not practice at all this week. So yeah, and Burks is ranked highest on our rankings too. So DJ Moore and Treylon Burks without DeAndre Hopkins. If DeAndre Hopkins plays, I'm still starting Treylon Burks. He's not going to be fully healthy. Poor Trey Sermon lost his job while on IR thanks to swift performance. Trey Sermon didn't really have a job anyways. He was kept on the roster because he was going to IR, but he probably would have ended up on the practice squad if not. He was behind Rashad Penny. But yeah, poor Trey Sermon. cut from injured reserve. A-Chain, Kendre Miller, and Jerome Ford are available on the wire. Should I pick up any of these guys? I would pick up Devon A-Chain, especially with Raheem Mostert. It was a rest day for Raheem Mostert, but it was also a knee. He got treatment on his knee. He's had knee issues for years. Jeff Wilson's on IR. So I think Devon A-Chain would be the guy. Though Jerome Ford did have 15 carries for the Cleveland Browns. I don't think that's going to be the norm. It was a weird game. Bengals benched their starters at one point. So I'm going with Devon A-Chain. Probably Jerome Ford, number 2. Kendre. I really like Kendre Miller, but he's going to be limited this weekend. And then Alvin Kamara's back in week 4. So a sneaky shootout, Tennessee versus Vegas. Oh, we could see that. We very well could see that. Chargers secondary was not good at all in week 1. Fields. Oh, we're going with Lamar versus Cincy, I think. Going with Lamar versus Cincy, right? Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense wasn't great, but Justin Fields also wasn't great. Lamar Jackson looked a lot better than Justin Fields. Yeah. Rankings confirm it. Let's go. Ship it. Lamar Jackson over Justin Fields for sure. Sometimes I just like to check to make sure that I am on the right track. Other injury news. We've got some bad injuries news. Austin Ekeler, doubtful. He has told us all to go pick up Joshua Kelly. A couple years ago, he told us to go pick up Justin Jackson, and Justin Jackson was an RB1 on the week. So listen when Austin Ekeler says pick up Joshua Kelly. His backup is wearing a number in the 40s as well. Isaiah Spiller, is he back on the practice squad? I know he was cut recently, or he was healthy and active. Either way, Joshua Kelly going to be a bell cow this week against the Tennessee Titans. But his work in the receiving game is going to have to be good because the Titans' run defense is pretty stout. We're also going to be without Jakobi Meyers. Did not practice at all this week. Out with a concussion. Unfortunate. Puka Nacua also didn't practice this week. Probably out. Rams haven't ruled him out yet, just like the Titans haven't ruled out DeAndre Hopkins, even though he didn't practice this week. But it's very rare to miss all 3 practices, not even get a limited session in and then play. So I'm not expecting Puka, not expecting Hopkins. Brandon Cooks very well could miss this week as well, unfortunately. That's the problem with the NFL. Injuries just pile up so quickly after week 1. All these nicks and scrapes. If you watched quarterback, you saw Kirk Cousins not listed on the injury report at all last year for the Minnesota Vikings, but was just in constant pain. So just be on the lookout. Even though players are healthy, even though players are in the lineup, no one is truly healthy. Spiller was a healthy scratch. That's what I'm thinking of. Was never cut. So he'll be active this week. Spiller and Dotson will be competing as the RB2, but let's be honest, Joshua Kelly is the bell cow. No bigger Jerome Ford truther than the hairy snowman. This is absolutely true. The man loves Jerome Ford, and for good reason. 15 carries last week, really flying under the radar. Jerome Ford getting 15 carries is like flying under the radar, like Tajay Spears out-snapping Derrick Henry. That blew my mind. The fact that Derrick Henry was out-snapped in his own backfield. 21 routes for Tajay Spears and just 10 for Derrick Henry. And I know Derrick Henry's never been a pass-catching back. I know they drafted Tajay Spears for this reason, but to see it happen in week 1, that surprised me. That surprised me a lot. Did the Jets really not sign another QB to roll with Randall Cobb as emergency QB instead? Well, they've got Tim Boyle as QB2. So this is basically the same situation as last week, right? Last week they had Rodgers at QB1, Wilson at QB2, and then Randall Cobb would have been the emergency QB3. They're just rolling it back with Zach Wilson at QB1, Tim Boyle at QB2. Surprised they haven't brought anyone in, though. I'm surprised they haven't signed Joe Flacco and Chris Streveler. That's kind of my prediction, is that they're going to get both of those players, both Chris Streveler and Joe Flacco. Streveler to the practice squad, Joe Flacco, and just run it back pretty much the exact same quarterback room as last year, except instead of Mike White, we get Tim Boyle. But yeah, I am shocked that the Jets haven't signed any quarterback yet. Absolutely shocked. Trade Jahmyr Gibbs for Mike Evans. No, I'd rather have Jahmyr Gibbs. I'd much rather have Jahmyr Gibbs. Baker Mayfield isn't going to play this great all season. Mike Evans is going to see Chris Godwin cut into his target share as well. And Jahmyr Gibbs is ascending. Are we allowed to talk about DST? I like Indy at Houston. Yeah, the Houston offensive line has seen better days. They're already without their right tackle. He's on injured reserve. They're without their center. He's on injured reserve. Their left guard is on injured reserve. And now Laramie Tunsil is looking like he's going to miss this week. This is why I was in on the Baltimore Ravens last week. The Indianapolis defense, though Jacksonville did put up points on them, they held their own as well. They had some flashes. Indy at Houston, I can co-sign it. The defensive line, the pass rush for the Indianapolis Colts, especially against the Houston Texans, against another rookie quarterback, I'm in on it. Anyways, moving on to the rest of the news around the NFL. We've got plenty. Bill Belichick. There are rumors that Bill Belichick will not retire until he beats Don Shula, because Don Shula had bad things to say about him during Spygate. During Spygate, Don Shula didn't think that Bill Belichick's legacy could remain intact, that Bill Belichick was forever tarnished. And so now Bill Belichick will not retire until he breaks Shula's record, gets the most wins all time by any head coach. And will it be with the Patriots? Patriots lost week 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles. Looked pretty damn good, though. They looked pretty good against the Eagles. Week 2, big matchup upcoming for the New England Patriots. Who are they playing? Oh, Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. Another big one. Patriots could go 0-2, but they're still looking a hell of a lot better than last year already, and we'll see what happens against the Dolphins. But we'll also see if Bill Belichick keeps his job. We know he's on the hot seat. We know Robert Kraft is getting hungry for a playoff win. So we'll see if Bill Belichick's hot seat gets hotter, if he is able to break Don Shula's record with Don Shula. Finishing things out, we've got some updates on the New York Jets. Breece Hall is still on a pitch count. Breece Hall still working his way back from the torn ACL. But we saw Breece Hall play 17 snaps. Not great. We'd like to see more. But on those 17 snaps, he had 11 touches. And on those 11 touches, it was great because Breece Hall had 147 yards. He was electric. Should have had a touchdown. Clearly doesn't trust his knee, or the long speed isn't there, whatever it is. Or if Garrett Wilson just throws a block instead of celebrating, that's a touchdown as well. It'll come with time. Breece Hall looking as explosive as ever. Just got to get the long speed, and then he'll be fine. But even if he doesn't, the explosiveness is just so incredible for Breece Hall. We also saw him making cuts on that knee super early in the game. So Breece Hall, even though he's on a pitch count, we are starting him no matter what. Half-point PPR redraft. Would you stash Ty Chandler over Zach Moss? Yes, I would. I am not a Zach Moss fan at all. Doesn't get involved in the passing game. Empty calorie touches. He's not going to get the goal line work because that's going to be Anthony Richardson instead. So I just not into Zach Moss. Not in. Oh, and then the camera goes out officially thanks to my silly cat. There we go. It is back. Probably not back for you because the Wi-Fi is so bad. But our final note, our final piece of news on the day. Aaron Rodgers. 2 things. Number 1, Aaron Rodgers is listening to the sound of dolphins mating because apparently that is good for the body's healing. This is what Aaron Rodgers is saying on the Pat McAfee show after undergoing surgery for his torn Achilles. I don't know about all that, but what I do know is that Aaron Rodgers has not ruled out a playoff run for the New York Jets. And if we think about it, October, November, December, January, the playoffs start in 4 months. Aaron Rodgers can say whatever he wants, but he's not playing in the playoffs. But the fact that Aaron Rodgers is flirting with the idea of playing in the playoffs, the fact that he is flirting with a return this season, Aaron Rodgers will be the Jets starting quarterback in 2024.